Most mammals reproduce until they die. Female chimpanzees give birth right up until the end. Same with elephants, gorillas, mice. For almost every mammal, losing fertility and dying happen at the same time. From an evolutionary standpoint, that makes perfect sense. Human women stop reproducing around age 50, and then live for another 30 to 40 years. Here's why that's strange. Evolution selects for traits that help genes spread. More reproduction means more copies of your genes. That's the whole game. So an organism that voluntarily ends its reproductive years and then keeps living for decades shouldn't exist. It breaks the basic logic. And yet, here we are. First, let's establish how rare this actually is. 3 animals, confirmed: humans, killer whales, short-finned pilot whales. That's essentially it, out of millions of species on this planet. Interesting crowd to be part of. Let's talk about the killer whales. A research team at the University of Exeter tracked killer whale populations for decades. The findings were striking. When a killer whale grandmother dies, the mortality rate of her grandchildren increases 5-fold within 2 years. 5 times. Not a one-off. A consistent pattern observed across multiple pods. Grandmother killer whales lead their groups. Decades of knowledge, where food is when it moves, what to do when it doesn't. Especially during food shortages, the grandmother's role turned out to be decisive. Without her, the group simply didn't know what she knew. That's not a theory, that's observational data. Which brings us to the most widely cited explanation, the grandmother hypothesis, proposed by anthropologist Kristen Hawkes in 1997. Theory, by the way, not fully proven, but the logic holds up. The core idea: helping grandchildren survive may actually spread more genes than reproducing directly. It's not about how many children you have, it's about how many of them actually survive. And sometimes a grandmother is the difference. There's human data on this too. Grandchildren with a living maternal grandmother had meaningfully higher survival rates. Maternal grandmother. The mother's mother. The effect from the paternal side was weaker. Why exactly? Still being worked out. Does this prove the grandmother hypothesis? Not directly. It shows correlation. It doesn't prove causation. Worth being honest about that. There are competing theories too. The mother hypothesis: stop reproducing to invest more in the children you already have. Human children are unusually dependent. For over a decade, having a new baby while raising a 10-year-old splits resources. The reproductive conflict hypothesis. Younger females outcompete older ones, so shifting to caregiving becomes the smarter move. Could be one of these, could be all 3. Evolution rarely has one clean answer. One more thing, the biological mechanism itself. Women are born with all the eggs they'll ever have. They don't make new ones. At birth, roughly 1 million. By puberty, around 300,000. Each month, a small batch is gone. By the early 50s, the supply runs out. Hormones shift. Menopause follows. That part is confirmed biology, not a hypothesis. What's interesting is the timing. The eggs run out right around the age when grandchildren start appearing. Coincidence? Maybe. But killer whales follow a nearly identical pattern, and that's a hard thing to explain away. Here's what this all comes down to. Menopause isn't a biological malfunction. Here's the most compelling interpretation. Stopping reproduction and investing in family under the right conditions was actually a more efficient way to pass genes forward. Is that proven? Not completely. The grandmother hypothesis is still a hypothesis. But the killer whale data is hard to ignore, and the logic is genuinely sound. The only animals on Earth confirmed to have menopause are humans and certain whales. Both are highly social. Both rely on accumulated knowledge to survive. Grandmothers were the keepers of that knowledge. Evolution doesn't usually keep things around for 30 to 40 years unless they're doing something useful. Grandmothers were useful. Apparently very. If this landed, subscribe and hit like. It genuinely helps. Drop a comment with what you thought of the grandmother hypothesis. Does it hold up? Or does another theory make more sense to you? We'll be back with another strange corner of human biology. See you next time.